Hello guys, welcome back to Not Just Make. It's Marco here, and today we talk about my journey into 3D printing. First of all, I really missed you guys, and I'm so happy to be back to the channel. The past 2 months have been a real roller coaster, and in my mind they seem like an entire lifetime. Thanks a million for all your kind thoughts, messages and support. It means a lot, so again, thank you from the heart. And apologies if you experience delays or late replies in the comments or in a private message. Baby and mom are fine and happy. Diego is amazing and is making every day of this experience an incredible adventure. In all this personal and global mess, we also found the time to look for a new house with more space for everyone. So in the next videos you'll probably see a new studio setup back here. As icing on the cake, thanks to the long sleepless nights, as you can see from my dark circles, I was able to clean my backlog of commissions and record some interesting new stuff. So if you want to bring to life some of your precious models, I'm again open for new projects. So I'm finally fully operational and really excited to start this, let's call it second season of the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to always know what happens on the channel. Back to the main topic of this video, 3D printing. I deal with miniatures, sculptors, model makers and miniature companies every single day, and in this constant flow of models and choices, I've never really considered 3D printing as an option for my workbench. How fool I was. Few weeks ago, Anycubic contacted me with the classic offer that you can't refuse, and they sent me free of charge their Anycubic Photon to test its performances in the specific contest of miniature printing and, even more important, miniature painting. Super excited for this opportunity, I quickly realized that I didn't know a single thing about 3D printing. You know that I like to be completely honest and sincere reviewing tools and products, so I decided to use this video to tell the simple story of a complete noob trying to empirically use his first 3D printer. I've already made a lot of experiments and some solid problem solving in the past few weeks, but I want to keep this material for future videos with more focused and specific topics to show you the learning curve you can have with your machine in just a couple of weeks of testing. For this same reason, I decided not to use the help of my Patreon community and friends that are already experts in this field to understand what is possible to do with the instructions and a basic understanding of this exciting new tool, relying only on experiments, a bit of planning and my knowledge of how miniatures are made. So, here is the story of the first week of a noob with the 3D printer, from its anticlimactic beginning to a very satisfying ending. Day 1. Resin and printer came in 2 separate parcels, and the resin arrived in its own little box a week before the printer. The mix of weight and hype almost killed me.
The printer's box is quite heavy. It arrived in my local post office that's not exactly close to my house, and I carried the box at home in the hottest day of the Irish Spring. Here is a visual reconstruction of my experience. After a shower, I'm ready for the unboxing. The parcel is super tight and full of safe packing material. I was a bit worried about the handling of the box and my messy journey through the streets of Dublin, but you can see that the printer is very well protected. In the top part there are tools and accessories. Quick instructions, a little stash of gloves and filters for the resin, a surgical mask, power cord and adapter, a plastic scraper, an USB drive, the door handle and its screws, a set of specific keys and a couple of screwdrivers. These are all the basic tools that you need to build, install and operate the printer.
Since we are talking about these, here is what I learned about tools and accessories, and what I consider absolutely mandatory.
I suggest you to keep handy a big stash of paper towels, gloves and a good amount of these paper strainers to clean the used resin from impurities. You can easily find them in bulk on Amazon. They are the same used to strain used cooking oil. I bought a bag of 100 with the silicone funnel included, just to play safe. It's nice of Anycubic to add a little surgical mask in the box, but I strongly suggest you to use something more technical and effective. You can't see my face, but behind the camera I'm wearing the big one I use for priming, heavy airbrushing and solvents, where I can change the filters for different specific uses. To simplify, avoiding to breathe chemicals is always a good choice.
You can consider the option to use a pair of safety glasses to protect your eyes from resin splashes and droplets that can be produced while removing the prints from the plate. I always have my glasses on and I'm really careful in that phase, but better to be safe than sorry.
The scraper provided in the box is more a toy than a proper tool, and the edge is thick and blunt, so I found it quite ineffective in removing the prints from the plate, without ruining the contact point or investing a lot of strength and time in the process. After the first experiment, I immediately switched to a cutter blade to easily go between the pieces and the plate. Something easy to forget. You'll need a huge amount of isopropyl alcohol to wash your prints from the excess of resin and the various parts of the printer that came in contact with it. I was lucky to have at home a 5 liters tank that I used to clean the table, the airbrush, to make my own thinners and a variety of different things. In this particular moment it's almost impossible to find a supplier of isopropyl alcohol at a good price, at least here in Ireland. Usually it's a cheap chemical, but I'll probably move to a water washable resin in the next future, waiting for the prices of ISO to come back to their normal range. You'll need also containers to wash your prints from the excess of uncured resin. The instructions are very precise and exhaustive about the printer itself, but they don't talk about post-production. Okay, it's stuff that you can easily find with a quick research on Google, but it would be nice to add this kind of information inside the box to have the full range of basic knowledge on the whole process. I found on Amazon 2 food storage containers with a very useful strainer inside. Sadly, shipping in this period are slow, so in my experiments I moved from an old plastic container to these 2 jars provided by Deliveroo and a providential craving for soup, to the final, more professional solution. To conclude the list of materials. Resin is UV sensitive and simply cures when exposed to light, but for a better and most important, quicker finish of the process, or if you live in a country where direct sunlight is a luxury, it's better to invest in a UV lamp, usually used for nails and gel polish. This is a LED UV lamp with a power of 120 watts. Probably an overkill, but I like this specific one for the possibility of separating and move the upper part and adapt its height to bigger models. Inside the printer you find the print platform and the resin vat, under this big block of protective foam.
This part was tricky.
Inside the flash drive you'll find the full instructions, but in the 2 pages of the assembling instructions there is a detailed step-by-step on how to set up the printer for your first test, explaining everything you need to know. Basically, all the real work is to set the point zero of the Z-axis, the vertical movement of the platform. An A4 sheet of paper is used to set the basic thickness of the screen in a vat and the first layer of resin inside it. Here you set the axis to its automatic lower point, and then you manually adjust the position, checking the resistance and the attrition of the paper. If you can pull it, but you can't push it back inside, you are in the right position. Then you set the platform with an extra push and fixing the screw on top. And set this position as value 0. Now you can set the vat in place and fix it. The transparent film in the vat should be flat and taut. If not, you can simply tighten the screws back here. The instructions insist a lot on the importance of leveling, and I quickly learned to repeat these steps for every new print. Following the instructions, I print the file already inside the flash drive. Everybody has a little cube with the Anycubic logo inside. I have these things. I discovered only later, reading the bigger manual, that this is called Resin Exposure Rangefinder, used to find the optimal exposure settings for different resins.
This was really anticlimactic.
I still want my fancy corporative cube and be part of the Cube Club. The STL file is inside the driver, but is not ready to be printed. Okay, I learned something. I have to use the program that comes with the printer, Photon Workshop, to slice the model, and then run the file into the printer. Okay, makes sense. This is the result.
At the end of day 1, I'm super depressed.
Day 2. Filled with new hope and good intentions, I clean everything, run again all the basic leveling and setting steps, and prepare my first real models. Today's objective is to have a proper batch of test miniatures and understand how to scale a model. There's a ton of beautiful models out there, but one of my main concerns is to be able to scale them to fit the common commercial sizes. To eliminate extra challenges and unpredictable factors, and in case be able to easier understand what went wrong, I decided to use a couple of models that don't need supports. These are made by Rocket Peak Games, plus a couple of interesting things like a set of candles and base toppers sculpted by Cast and Play. You can find all the links in the description. I use Microsoft 3D Builder to check the models and change their scale. The program is very simple, intuitive, user-friendly and free. Probably is already on your computer. You can adjust the dimension manually, set a measure or work on a percentage. Here I made a bit of research, and to scale the models I used the reference files created by Printable Scenery. Basically, they already made all the problem solving that I plan to do myself. I simply import the models on the same plane and adjust the scale as needed. I also eyeballed a couple of them just for fun. This is promising. The experiment this time is a complete success. This is my first batch of real models and I'm already amazed by their quality. Even in this smaller scale, all the details are still there and easily visible, and you have also fine textures in the different materials, something really interesting that you usually don't get in commercial miniatures. I printed also a couple of cool special effects by Deadly Print Studio.
Okay. Now I'm starting to be really excited.
It's time to take a moment to thank all my patrons. Thanks a million for all your awesome support, even during this parental leave. I love you guys. Day 3. In the new test I want to work with something more complicated, where I can test my understanding of positioning the model and supports. I chose 3 different files with complicated shapes, a lot of details and a more complex 3-dimensional presence. Again, you can find all the links in the description.
This is the only step where I actually cheated, and I looked online for direct hints and suggestions. Thanks a million for your help. I want to do this experiment using first automatic supports. I immediately understood that this is considered some kind of heresy in the 3D printing community. I totally understand that an automatic process can't be perfect, but again I want to minimize my power of screw up things in this phase. If something goes wrong, I can blame the program.
It came out that a promising solution for my problem is to use Prusa Slicer, the slicer software of Prusa3D.com, a brand of printers that developed its own software that seems really good in placing automatic supports. Here I try to use my knowledge of how miniatures and sprues are made and a bit of common sense to solve the problem of positioning. I want to minimize the visual impact of supports, placing them in hidden or non-meaningful parts of the model. I still don't know how difficult they are to clean and the quantity of material and damage they leave on the model. When I'm satisfied with the positioning, I set the density of the supports to 75% and let the program to do its magic. The result seems pretty reasonable. I slice it again using Anycubic Workshop and I move to the actual printing. I use the settings suggested by the sculptor on his page. Now I have a much better understanding of these parameters and I think I'll dedicate a specific video to this topic.
I know there are more advanced slicers out there, but again, I'm trying to keep these first steps as simple as I can, relying only on the tools and information that come with the printer itself. Plus, I'm already juggling between 3 programs and I don't want to complicate things even more.
And here is the result. I can't tell you how happy I am in this moment. At a first inspection, every little detail seems in the right place. Let's see how is the situation under the supports. Supports are very easy to handle and remove, with the usual basic modeling tools, especially if you are trained cleaning thousands of sprues and models. The miniatures are crazily good. Here is another scaling test using Planet Scenery reference models. This one is scaled to the 25mm model, so 35mm of total height. Perfect to stay next to a GW standard human. And this one is scaled using the 30mm model, so 40mm of total height, a size much more suitable to match a primary Space Marine. Obviously, depending on the proportions of the model, you'll need to adjust a bit more your scale. A human figure with natural proportions, even if scaled properly, can look like an ogre or an halfling next to a GW style model, with their big heads, hands and feet. This thing just happened on the wave of inspiration. It will probably need its own video if you are curious to see where I'm going with this concept.
The prints seem really good, but the ultimate test of quality is obviously to paint them.
To make a proper test, I want to paint the model using simple techniques that rely on the volumes and the details of the sculpt itself. I start with a white zenithal light over a black base. If there's something wrong in the sculpt, this step will show it immediately. I use contrast paints to set the base tones. You know that I tend to paint with a non-linear process. The first stages can seem ugly and difficult to understand, but give me credit. The various base tones are placed to support the next layers, especially for the skin and the metal parts. I base the metal parts with a mix of metallic paints and inks to add subtle extra tones inside the mix and increase its fluidity. Here is the result with all the basic colors in place and a light shading with the airbrush. I quickly painted the base of my rust, stippling different brown and orange tones, like I did in the Iron Golems video. I want to use some heavy oil washes. This is another technique that depends completely on the quality of the model and its details, so they will be useful to bring out everything the sculpt and the print can give me. I apply the paint and clean it like a layer of thick weathering, almost sculpting the layer of grime and extra tones. Pretty good, eh? At this point, I can add a subtle, warm, glowing effect coming from the candles. And move to the wet palette for the extreme lights and shadows, definition, textures, little details and adjustments. So, this is the result of my first week into 3D printing, from the first not really exciting production to the peak of my experiments.
At the end of the first week, I can't really tell if 3D printing is an easy or complicated thing, but it's definitely really exciting and deeply satisfying. There is a lot to learn and process, especially in the software compartment, but the basic support coming with the printer is really good. Online you can find an answer to every possible question you have, and in the community there's plenty of people ready to help you. From a professional point of view, this tool will add a lot of new possibilities to what I can do in the studio. I'm thinking mostly to advanced basing, conversions, and all the bits I can possibly imagine. Not to mention all the miniatures that I can magically teleport in my collection. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Remember that you can always ask me anything down below with a comment, and you can follow my projects during the week using one of my socials. And if you want to support the channel and my work, check my Patreon page and join the community, or maybe ask for a commission. See you next week, guys!